have a little more luck in getting them. And let's just quickly look at the rushing matchups, Robbie. Here are some of the guys that do have really good, favorable rushing matchups in weeks 15 and 16.
Yeah, if you're a Darren McFadden keeper, you're loving this because you're going up against the Broncos and the Colts week 15, 16. If you have the contingency plan in your back pocket with Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams, you're looking at Buffalo and Detroit. And then also, if you're a Houston Texans fan, Arian Foster, you have Tennessee, but then you have Denver in week 16.
So yeah, I mean, maybe a guy on this list that I would try to target would be maybe even a Ryan Terrain or a Maurice Jones-Drew off of that list. I think that their value is very low right now. But Terrain's value is not low, but some people may have thought he got lucky with the last couple of matchups. So I would target a guy like Terrain or Maurice Jones-Drew. Maurice Jones-Drew is certainly attainable right now. Some of the tougher matchups, rushing matchups. I mean, here we are, the Kansas City Chiefs. We just got done talking about them. The Kansas City Chiefs, the best rushing back attack in the entire NFL. But it is a committee, but still a very successful committee. Goes against St. Louis and Tennessee, surprisingly tough defenses.
Yeah, really tough. And also New York Jets, another tough schedule. But I look at the top five, and I really can't tell you if you're starting some of these running backs. I guess Seattle, Marshawn Lynch, Cincinnati, Cedric Benson, Chicago, Matt Forte, New York Jets, Sean Green, and LT. So you might want to stay away from these guys, plugging them in later in your fantasy season.
Yeah, they'd be good, certainly be good committees to avoid. But right now we have Gia Moore in the house. She is now in the Weather Center standing by for you. Gia is new to the Weather Center, and she's fantastic. And she is here to take away the NFL Week 8 weather.
Hey there, fellas. Guess what? It's Halloween. Happy Halloween from the Fantasy Sports Review Weather Center. I am Gia Mora reporting on the NFL Week 8 weather in this weekend's top games. The Redskins, our home team, are off to Detroit to face the Lions. Detroit flat out embarrassed the Redskins last year, but this is a different Redskins team this year, one that is getting better at closing the deal. They are getting rewarded with treats rather than the team getting tricked into the loss column. The Lions will be coming off the bye and have outscored their opponents 146 to 140, but have a 1-5 record. So in other words, the Lions play everyone close. This game will be played at Ford Field in a dome, so you won't have to worry about the weather being a factor at all. The Minnesota Vikings, that's, this side right there, Minnesota, home of Garrison Keillor. Those guys head east for a rare visit to New England to face the Patriots. This game will, of course, feature the return of Randy Moss, who recently changed his Halloween costume from the red, white, blue, and silver of the Patriots to the purple of the Minnesota Vikings. The media will have a spooky, scary field day with this one, but do not expect Moss to have a field day or trick anyone, especially if Brett Favre misses the first game of his NFL career. Looks like perfect weather for the game. It'll be a crisp fall afternoon as the highs will only approach 50 degrees, so hopefully you'll get to spend some time tailgating and not sitting in that miserable traffic. Over on the West Coast, the only real game that has some possible weather ramifications will be the game between the Seattle Seahawks heading into Oakland. Now, I really don't think anyone is going to want to watch this game at all. I mean, there aren't any really good fantasy players on either of these teams. Well, except for Darren McFadden, because he's dreamy. And when the fans see the weather and there's a 50-50 shot of rain, yeah, I think most people will just choose to stay home and make sure that no one plays any tricks on their houses while they are at the game. On Sunday Night Football, as all the little trick-or-treaters are knocking on your door, you'll be able to turn into NBC for the marquee matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New Orleans Saints. Steelers will be the ones coming marching into the Superdome to beat up on the battered and bruised Saints team. Again, another dome game here, so no weather issues to report. Finally, the Monday Night Football game this week is a rematch of the Week 1 game between the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are coming off a bye week and some much-needed rest and recovery time. The Colts are now without their star tight end Dallas Clark and emerging wide receiver threat Austin Collie. Again, yet another dome game. I'm feeling kind of useless. So don't worry about the weather here either. Unless we have to issue a special news warning against a possible tornado this weekend. So stay tuned to the Fantasy Sports Review fan page on Facebook for updates. Now, it's time to take a minute to thank Kevin Greavy and Greavy's Sports Bar and Restaurant here in Fairfax. Greavy's is home to the best sports bars in all of Northern Virginia and should play host to all your sports viewing needs. Greavy's is conveniently located at the corner of Gallows Road and Route 50 in Fairfax. And for many years, Greavy's has been a tremendous supporter of our show, and we appreciate their loyalty. Well, that'll do it for the weather in this week's key NFL games. Thank you so much for joining me here in the Fantasy Sports Review Weather Center. Again, I'm Gia Mora reporting. I hope that you all have a spectacular Halloween. Now back to Phil and Robbie in the studio.
Wow. Hey, Gia, thanks a lot for giving us that weather report. A lot of dome games this weekend, it looks like.
Yeah, fantasy football won't be affected by the weather this weekend. There's running backs and there's the passing attacks, no excuses.
It might affect the trick-or-treaters on Sunday night, but hey, we're not worried about them. We're worried about our fantasy football teams. What are some of the top games this week, Robbie?
Well, one game that I like that I'm really kind of pinpointing is that Minnesota at New England game. I know that New England, I've said it before, but I won't say it again. They're going to come prepared. They're going to play Minnesota. Minnesota's tough defense. Brett Favre may or may not play. I think he's going to play. If not, Tavares Jackson gets the nod. But you got to love this New England passing attack. Again, because you watched Aaron Rodgers throw for over 275 yards and a few touchdowns. I think Tom Brady, might have a field day against his Minnesota Vikings secondary.
Well, I want to know this. I mean, does the fact that Randy Moss knows the entire Patriots playbook, is that going to help them have an edge against the Patriots?
I don't think so, because they have so many different looks that they run out of the New England Patriots offense that he should not. And you know what? The New York Jets last year got a third-string quarterback out of the New England Patriots, and you saw what the Patriots did. That they
Belichick is no dummy.
They won the AFC, so they're not idiots.
All right, so Matt Stafford comes back for the Lions. I mean,
Right.
Obviously we saw what he could do last year against the Washington Redskins. The Redskins I think they might be in a little bit of a trap game.
Yeah, I
if they're
think so
not
too. You
careful.
got Calvin Johnson to throw to. You also have Javid Best, who's been a workhorse.
Coming
for
off
the
a bye
Lions.
week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like the Detroit offense in that game. You're right, trap game. Redskins lose that game.
And the Detroit has been playing some surprisingly good defense. They've outscored their opponents 146 to 140, and they're 1-5. I mean, that shows you that they're playing some very close games. They won blowout against Seattle, but they're playing some very close games. And then just to wrap things up, on Monday Night Football, we have a hell of a treat in for us that night with the Houston and Indianapolis.
It's going to be a score fest, absolute score fest.
It should be just like the first game. It should be a lot of fun and a lot of fantasy points. Pittsburgh and New Orleans, Robbie, what do you got there?
I like New Orleans. I know Pittsburgh's undefeated right now, but they go into a hostile New Orleans Saints team that is in dire need of a victory. I think New Orleans Saints gets it done.
Wow, that's a pretty bold prediction right there with the return of Roethlisberger. Hey, we'd like to thank Steve Mullen for directing the show. We'd like to thank Gia Moore for coming on and doing the weather. And, of course, we'd like to thank Amanda Walker for doing awesome news. But we got to go, guys. We will see you next time. For Robbie Castro, I'm Phil Hargis. We will see you next time on Fantasy Sports Review. Goodbye, everybody.
¿Te gusta la radio? ¿Te gusta?